What if I told you that Americans are just one swipe away from financial disaster? The American economy is in a state of crisis, and many households are living on the brink of financial disaster due to mounting debt. In the face of a struggling economy and high unemployment rates, credit cards have become a necessary lifeline for many Americans, helping them to make ends meet and weather the economic storm. But as the debt levels continues to rise, many households are left wondering when they will hit their credit card limit and what will happen when the US runs out of credit. Today, we'll explore the current economic situation in the US and the long-term consequences of relying on credit cards to survive. We'll also discuss the potential risks and challenges that households may face if they continue to accumulate debt and what they can do to protect themselves from financial ruin. It's no secret that cost of living is rising, putting a financial burden on hardworking Americans. But instead of reducing expenses, more and more people are turning to debt as a solution. The US household debt has hit a record high of $16.9 trillion in the last quarter. This figure has been fueled by credit card debt, which is swelling at record levels. In this video, we'll dive into the data to understand the reasons behind the surge in credit card debt and the implications it has for Americans. In the last quarter, credit card debt in the US has surged at the fastest pace ever recorded, increasing nearly 6.6% to $986 billion, the highest quarterly growth on record, according to the New York Fed. This is not a good sign, especially when the economy is slowing down. However, millions of Americans are still piling on debt despite the risk, and the latest numbers show that early delinquencies and credit card payments are on the rise, which is concerning. The New York Fed reported that 18.3 million Americans were behind on their credit card payments at the end of 2022. The credit trifecta is a term used to describe the three key factors that determine an individual's credit score: credit utilization, payment history, and the length of credit history. These three factors are interrelated, and a low score in anyone's access to credit can be significantly affected by various factors. The first factor in the credit trifecta is credit utilization, which is the amount of credit a person is using compared to the total credit they have available. When credit utilization is high, it can indicate to lenders that an individual is relying too heavily on credit, which can be a red flag for potential creditors. High credit utilization can cause a significant decrease in credit scores, which can make it difficult for individuals to access credit when they need it most. The second factor is payment history, which looks at an individual's history of making payments on time. Late payments or missed payments can significantly impact on the individual's credit score and make it more challenging for them to access credit in the future. And the third factor is the length of credit history, which looks at how long an individual has been using credit. A short credit history can make it more challenging to build a good credit score, making it difficult to access credit when needed. Unfortunately, many Americans are struggling with a credit trifecta, making it difficult for them to access the credit they need. High credit utilization, late payments, and a short credit history can all contribute to a low credit score, which can make it challenging to access credit for emergencies, such as unexpected costs such as medical expenses, automobile maintenance, and home repairs can arise. The credit trifecta can leave many Americans feeling trapped in a cycle of debt with few options for escape. Unfortunately, many Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, and they are struggling to keep up with rising costs. Many are being hit with bills they cannot afford to pay. For example, one California homeowner received a $907.13 utility bill, almost 8 times higher than his bill at the same time the previous year. Millions of Americans are experiencing similar situations while food prices continue to soar. The Wall Street Journal recently published an article titled, "To Save Money, Maybe You Should Skip Breakfast," indicating that people may need to eat less to save money. These financial struggles are the result of reckless policies created by our leaders, which have caused an inflation crisis. The consequences of this crisis are now being felt by ordinary Americans. As a result of the inflation crisis, central banks worldwide are raising interest rates in an attempt to control it. However, this could lead to a burst of the largest debt bubble in human history. Debt is crucial to the world economy, but it has reached unprecedented levels with total debt amounting to $300 trillion as of June 2022. With negative supply shocks persisting, debt risks are becoming increasingly alarming. An economist explains that the explosion of unsustainable debt ratios in recent decades has created insolvent borrowers such as households, corporations, banks, shadow banks, governments, and even entire countries. These zombies were being propped up by low interest rates, which kept their debt servicing costs manageable. However, inflation's return ended this financial dawn of the dead, and we're propelling towards the mother of all stagflationary debt crisis. The higher interest rates are slowing down economic activity, and signs indicate that this is already happening. U.S. home construction fell to the lowest level since the early days of the COVID pandemic. The U.S. housing market will continue to crash in the months ahead, and the tsunami of layoffs we have seen during the pandemic is far from over. The current economic crisis is threatening the availability of credit, leaving many Americans with few options. If the U.S. runs out of credit, the consequences for American households and the economy could be dire. The pandemic has left many households in a precarious financial situation with little savings and mounting debt. Credit cards have become a necessary lifeline for many Americans, but if access to credit were to disappear, the consequences could be catastrophic. Without access to credit, many households would be unable to make necessary purchases or pay bills. This could lead to a rise in defaults and bankruptcies, putting further strain on the economy. The credit market is also closely tied to the stock market and other financial markets. A collapse in the credit market could trigger a wider economic crisis, affecting not just American households, but the global economy as well. While the situation may seem bleak, there are steps that can be taken to avoid a complete collapse of the credit market. Now, we will discuss some potential solutions and strategies that households and policymakers can implement to address the mounting debt crisis and ensure the availability of credit in the future. There are steps that Americans can take to manage their credit card debt and improve their credit score. Budgeting, paying bills on time, and reducing unnecessary spending are just a few of the ways Americans can take control of their debt. One of the most important steps in managing credit debt is to create a budget. This involves identifying all sources of income and expenses and creating a plan to allocate funds to different expenses, including credit card payments. It's also crucial to pay bills on time to avoid late fees and penalties that can add up over time. Setting up automatic payments or reminders can be helpful in ensuring that bills are paid on time. Another strategy is to reduce unnecessary spending. Americans can take a hard look at their expenses and identify areas where they can cut back, such as eating out less or canceling subscription services. Finally, it's important to avoid taking on more debt than is necessary. Americans can consider alternative sources of financing, such as personal loans, to avoid high interest rates and penalty fees associated with credit card debt. By taking these steps, Americans can take control of their debt and improve their credit score, making it easier to access credit in the future. The current economic situation highlights the importance of emergency funds and savings. It is crucial for Americans to create a financial cushion to withstand unexpected events such as a pandemic or job loss. In addition to personal actions, policymakers can play a role in supporting households during these difficult times. Measures such as stimulus checks and extended unemployment benefits can provide some relief to households struggling with debt. However, by taking proactive steps to manage debt and improve credit, Americans can take control of their financial future. It's also up to policymakers to create policies that support households during these difficult times, ensuring that Americans can weather the storm and emerge financially stable.